No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
We'll get to the Jets and the Islanders game, and we'll get to that, and we'll go in depth like we do on each and every edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. But as you can see, folks, I am in my usual studio here in my basement, and Ezzy is in a very familiar location based on where he frequently does the show. He frequently does the show at Dave's house, as you are all aware. But what you may also notice is that Dave isn't on the show. So we're now at the point in the Illegal Curve family where Ezzy just goes to Dave's house on his own without Dave being there and does the show from Dave's house, just curls up on the couch, watches the third period, and broadcasts from Dave's house, even without Dave being present. So I guess with that, established on this evening's post-game show, we say good evening, universe, good evening, Manitoba. And for all those joining us, whether you are in Winnipeg, whether you are online, wherever you are in the world, even at Dave's house without Dave, is anyone else there, Ezzy? Are there other people?
Nobody else is here, but I might do the show at Spency's house, by the way. We've got the comment up there for people listening on the podcast. Spency, I would love to do the show at your house, or maybe in Sage Creek, where we know there's a nice little hot tub. But yes, the secret is out. I have a key to Dave's house. Like, I guess I'm Dave's girlfriend. I'm not sure. But the reason why I have the key is because, as you know, Drew,
yes,
Dave M usually watches each Jets home game, the first two periods, and then he comes back here, and then I come over here for the third period, and then we do the post-game show. Right. Unless I'm sick or Dave's not doing the show, then I'll do the show at home. So
no,
basically,
Dave's not doing the show. You're doing the show at his house right now.
Exactly. But the reason why I have the key is in case, I'm there before Dave gets back from downtown. The main reason is I left all my stuff here. Like, I left my laptop, my microphone, webcam, everything like that. It's just easier to leave all my stuff here. I just basically, it's just nice to get out of the house. Like, I'm basically escaping my children, Drew. You know what that's like.
If your children are awake at 5 minutes to 10 o'clock, then we have other more legitimate issues we need to discuss. But for I do understand.
Taves is also, maybe we have something else to discuss, Drew, with that comment up there.
Yeah, we'll leave that comment for another day and time. Your relationship with Dave is your relationship. You guys can have that and
special
discuss that on your own. You guys have a very mutually dependent relationship. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah. It might be a little bit toxic at times, but it's a close relationship for sure.
Under no circumstances, for the record, before you can even ask, under no circumstances can you have a key to my house. Just so you know.
I would just like to be allowed on the property, Drew. I mean, last time I was electrocuted. Guards. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to get past your moat. I mean, for those who don't know, Drew has quite the expansive property. It's tens of thousands of acres. So it's really tough to get past Drew's moat. But I don't expect to ever get your key. I actually don't even expect to be invited over to your house, Drew, for that matter.
Then you won't be the least bit disappointed in that case. And that's probably have lower expectations, and everybody's going to be fine with that. Let's talk about this hockey game tonight, the Jets and the New York Islanders. A 4-2 victory for the Winnipeg Jets. So their brief journey to the losing part of the ledger lasted only for the one game. Back on the winning side of things with tonight's victory on home ice to wrap up the road trip with the homestand with a 3-1 record, the only blemish being Saturday night's loss to the Philadelphia Flyers. 2 goals or less, again, just as you would expect from this team at this point in time. A bit of a weird game from my estimation, Ezzy. You got 2 of the best goalies in the league going head to head. Yep. They each made some
Sorokin
really
hasn't
nice...
been one of the best goalies this year, though.
What's that?
Sorokin definitely has not been one of the best goalies. I mean, I was looking at the goal save above expected. Right. I don't even think he's in the top 20. Like, I want to say he's something like 30th or 35th. He was very good tonight, Drew.
Right.
But I'm just wanted to throw that out there because he was a Vezina finalist last year. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be a Vezina finalist this year. I think, well, first off, Hellebuck and Demko, I mean, you might as well just let them battle it out for the Vezina trophy. But I just wanted to throw that in there. Varlamov was actually, before he got injured, playing better than Sorokin.
Yeah, the Islanders really aren't a great hockey team. I mean, they've played 44 games now as after tonight's loss. They've only won 19 of those games. So again, your bare minimum to be considered what I would describe as an average hockey team is that you have to win at least half your games, not get points in half your games, but you have to win half your games. I mean, the only reason the Isles are even sniffing a playoff spot is because they have 10 overtime and shootout defeats.
Which is most in the league.
Which is the only thing that's keeping them afloat. So they're not a great hockey team by any stretch of the imagination. Their defense is weak, is what I would say. I mean, being charitable, that's their defense is a problem. They don't have
They're without Ryan Pollock right now, who's from Manitoba. Ryan Pollock is, I think, missed something like, I don't know, 20 games or something like that. He's one of their top defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a significant injury. I just wanted to throw that in there, Drew. Like, Pollock is, I don't know if he's their best defenseman, but he's definitely one of their best defensemen.
Yeah, they just don't necessarily have the depth in order to withstand that kind of loss on the back end. But whatever, regardless of that, I just found it to be an odd game, just sort of, starts and stops for each team. I mean, obviously the Jets, and we'll get into everything and all the details during the Betway game recap coming up here on the Illegal Curve post game show. But, the big feeling out period for a lot of the portion of this game. Then the Jets in that second period get sort of those 2 goals, almost had a third one when the puck ricocheted off the stanchion right in front. And they're not necessarily, fluky goals, but they are both a little bit fluky. It involves a broken blade of a skate, and then it involves a bank shot. And Connor Hellebuck gives up a bad angle goal, which we haven't seen very often.
Did Neil Pionk's stick get a piece of that?
If it did, I'd have to look back and watch
Pionk
it again.
Reaches, right? He's in front of Hellebuck,
right,
and he reaches his stick out. But obviously, I mean, it looked like Hellebuck had the post covered.
Yeah,
I mean, Hellebuck, I don't think anybody is going to be criticizing Hellebuck's form or positioning there. It was a bit of a fluky goal. And Anders Lee, look, I mean, we'll get into that goal. I mean, Anders Lee is a great player. He's a former 40 goal scorer.
Right.
But you're right, Drew. I mean, and there were some fluky goals.
Mm-hmm.
There were some missed calls.
Yeah.
Right. Scott Mayfield high sticks Vlad Nemestikov in a scary situation. It looked like Nemestikov might have to leave the game, and he didn't.
Right.
And then you could kind of see he was a little bit woozy the next couple of shifts. But yeah, there were some missed calls, some fluky goals. But like I said I tweeted this out this afternoon. The Islanders entering the game had lost 3 of their last 4.
Right.
And you mentioned
they got embarrassed last night.
Right. And Lane Lambert came out and he said, enough excuses. And, I think the Islanders responded very impressively in the third period. The Islanders were all over the Jets in the third period. The only problem is they were down 2 goals at that point, so they were chasing the game, right? So they get the early goal in the third period, but I mean, look, Matt Barzal is, a top 20, maybe even top 10 skilled forward in the NHL. Bo Horvat, I thought, was really good. Actually thought Hudson Fasching,
he was noticeable in that third period,
really
particularly.
Yeah. And so like the Islanders, there's a big drop off after, Horvat, Barzal, Lee, and Brock Nelson, right? But you're right though, Drew. Scoring goals has not been the problem. The Islanders have been averaging 3 goals a game this year,
right?
And their power play is actually decent.
And their penalty kill is horrible.
Defense and their penalty kill,
no,
which has been the staple of the Islanders going back to the Jack Capuano years, right? Like that has been the identity of the Islanders for many years. And I mean, look, they're fighting with teams like the Devils and the Lightning. I guess if you want to throw in the Flyers, even though the Flyers have pulled away a little bit, they're third in the Metro. But yeah, this Islanders team, I think that was a tough. That's why they were battling so hard. And as I mentioned, that's why I expected them to be desperate. The only problem is they took their foot off the gas, and the Jets were all over them in the second period, and they were taking penalties that they didn't need to. Like the penalty Mike Riley took on Dominic Toninato behind the net. I think it was cross-checking. I thought it was cross-checking.
Could have been boarding.
Yeah, but like that penalty was shortly after, I believe, Neil Pionk scored the goal to go up 2-1, right?
Yes, it was. It's exactly right. So
you can't take that penalty when you're down a goal and you're desperate and You've lost 3 of your last 4 games, now 4 of their last 5 games.
Yeah.
You just can't take that type of penalty. So I just thought the Islanders were undisciplined. And yeah, the second period, I mean, the Jets did most of their damage, but give the Jets credit for hanging on. They drew a penalty late. Again, like speaking of, the Islanders taking a lot of penalties, and then Kyle Connor obviously gets the empty net goal to make sure that the Islanders don't come back. So, I mean, it was a very close game. Like, yes, the Islanders were the better team in the third. The Jets were the better team in the second. I'd kind of say the first was a wash.
Yeah.
Maybe you give a little bit of an edge to the Jets. Maybe. I don't know.
On
I thought it was pretty even. Yeah, exactly. So, it was a hard-fought game. And as you mentioned, I mean, the game against the Hawks, they got the 2 points. It was ugly, and it looked like the Hawks might steal that one. But overall, at the end of the day, you won 3 of 4 at home. You don't play till Saturday, and you're first overall in the league. So again, I mean,
and based on the comments that you're hearing is that the Jets are hopeful. I mean, it sounds like even maybe confident. I don't want to put words in their mouth that Mark Scheifele might rejoin the team for practice on Friday and could be eligible to play on Saturday, which, lo and behold, means that you're basically at full strength with your forward group for the first time since game 3 of the season, when Gabe Vilardi went down with his injury, because you got Kyle Connor back tonight, and Kyle Connor obviously scores the empty net goal. And really, I thought, he maybe wasn't, exactly what Kyle Connor is, but he was a pretty good, a pretty reasonable facsimile of Kyle Connor. And so all of a sudden the Jets are, still atop the NHL and are getting pretty much fully healthy, more or less on their team, which is a pretty scary proposition for everybody else in the NHL. I mean, that's just that's really where they're at. If the Jets can get Scheifele back, on Saturday, or if it's not Saturday, if it's Monday against Boston, well, you got really 4 games to go now before you have the break, before you get your bye week and the All-Star break, and which would be a time for the Jets to even further heal up. They're probably in a pretty good position right now. I'd say they're probably feeling pretty good about themselves, especially getting the win tonight in what was a bit of a grinder, wasn't really the prettiest game, didn't have the greatest.
Well, the Islanders aren't a pretty team. That's the thing. Like Matt Barzal is a pretty player to watch.
Right.
We talked about him. He's very elusive. He's one of the best playmakers in the game. And I'm not saying that, being sarcastic or I think overstating it. I mean, a few years ago, what did he have? 90 points or something like that?
Something.
I mean, the Islanders are, look, I think the Islanders are your kind of quintessential, as you said, middling team, right? Like, could the Islanders, if they squeak into the playoffs in a wild card spot, could they upset somebody in the first round? Of course they could. The Panthers did it last year to the Bruins. It could happen in the Western Conference as well, right? Somebody could upset the Jets in the first round, or Seattle upset Colorado in the first round last year, right? Yeah. It happens every year. Last year, everybody was saying, okay, it's not going to happen to Boston. This Boston team is too good. There's no way it's going to happen. And we're probably going to say it again, when April rolls around and we're talking about the first round, right? But yeah, you're right, Drew. This was a grinder. That's a good way to describe it. But, I love the fact, I loved Dom Toninato between Nino Niederreiter and Alex Iafallo.
Look, I thought he had a very good game for the Jets. You know who I thought really, had a nice game as well is Rasmus Kupari.
Yeah.
I thought Rasmus Kupari
much better than the game against Philly.
Much better than the game against Philly, which is getting that game against Philly. That's a tough situation to step into. Right. Given that
played a lot of hockey.
You haven't played a lot of hockey. You played that one game for the Moose. You travel from Laval. You're being sort of thrust into a prominent position in that, Scheifele's out of the lineup and everything else. I thought today he used his speed and his size, pretty well in tonight's contest. And if that's the Rasmus Kupari you're going to see more often than not, then there's certainly a role for him on this Winnipeg Jets team. And our buddy Mike McIntyre wrote about it in the free press. I don't know if that was today's free press or yesterday's broadsheets. Free press. The days blend together, but he talked about how the Jets put an emphasis on ensuring that Kupari was part of that trade. We know how fast he is. The hands, you're not sure, how great those hands are yet, but you know how fast he is and you know how big he is. So when that truck gets moving, then that's a pretty dangerous thing for a defense to try and have to stop.
So, Drew, is Mike's next article going to be how Chevy wanted the second round pick included in the trade, or no? But I mean, like, look at I've said this before, and I was kind of half joking, but not really joking. I think you could argue that Velarde for Dubois straight up, the Jets win that trade
right now, yeah.
And then you throw in Alex Iafallo, you throw in Rasmus Kupari. It's almost like the Evander Kane trade, Drew, from whatever that was, 2014 or 2015. I forget which year it was. It was about 10 years ago. I know that.
Yeah.
Right. And then you do all the math, and then, it looks very one-sided. Right. And I think people across the NHL are talking about how one-sided that trade's look. And obviously you can't determine a winner of a trade after 1 year, but I wouldn't be surprised if a year or two from now, we're still saying the Jets won that trade because of how well Gabe Velarde has worked out. And Rasmus Kupari, you forget, not you, but some people might, he's under contract for 1 more year.
Sure.
Right. So like, it's not like Kupari is, it's not like the Jets just have him for
he's
1 more year.
Player still.
He's a good player. Yeah. And a first round pick. We've talked about that before. Right. So
yeah,
I did think Kupari was really good. I made a note here, Drew. I forgot if it was in the first or second, but Kupari stole the puck from Adam Pelech, a big, solid defenseman for the New York Islanders. And then it resulted in a Morgan Barron scoring chance. So
that was early in the first period. That was early in the first period. I made the same note.
Pelech was trying to make a pass to an Islanders breaking out of their zone. Game. I forgot who the Islanders forward was, but Pelech coughed the puck up. Kupari just made a nice anticipatory pass, if that's a word. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Drew. But Kupari should be centering that fourth line. But again, I want to give credit to Dom Toninato for stepping up and centering that third line. This is a guy who's played the majority of the season with the Moose, or he's been a healthy scratch with the Jets, kind of that 13th forward. So Dom Toninato deserves a lot of credit, I think, for not only how he's played on the fourth line, but how he stepped up into the third C role tonight. And I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that Ehlers was moved down to the second line, but I mean, Lowry, Connor, and Connor, I mean, they looked fantastic. I forgot who was on the
Velarde. Lowry, Connor, and Velarde.
Lowry, Connor, Velarde. I mean, they looked pretty good tonight. So I think when Scheifele comes back, there's a chance it's going to be Connor, Scheifele, Velarde. Look, I think Ehlers and Perfetti and Nemesnikov, they weren't getting enough 5-on-5 time. Like like Garrett, our buddy Garrett Hole, who writes the 5 hole, like he was talking about that. I agree with that. Like, I don't think you saw enough out of Nick Ehlers tonight. I mean, obviously he was generating speed, he was generating scoring chances, but the third line, I think, was playing maybe a little bit more than you would like at even strength.
Well, I think you need to find a way, and I know, and then this is just, we've seen Rick Bowness do this for a number of years now, for a couple of years. He needs to find a way to give to give Ehlers and Perfetti more 5-on-5 time. It's just that simple. They've earned it. They deserve it. Their play, demands it. You just need to find a way to give them more 5-on-5 time, because that's just how good they've been. And when they're on the ice, the puck is in the opposition zone. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Good things happen when Ehlers and Perfetti are at 5-on-5. And so whatever perception
and Nemesnikov, we talked about
too,
the penalty that should have been called, but then he drew another penalty.
Yeah, he was all over the place tonight. He took a penalty and he drew 2 penalties. So
Hudson Fasching took a penalty.
Yeah, it was a notable
in the second
game.
Period. Yeah,
it was a notable game for Vlad Nemesnikov. He was all over the not the score sheet necessarily, but all over the play. You heard his name a lot. In the course of tonight's game. But I agree with you. You need to find a way to give more ice time to Ehlers and more ice time to Perfetti, especially if they're going to be on the same line. If those guys are playing together, you have to find a way to get them more minutes at 5-on-5, because they are, especially if they're playing against opposition's, second or third pairing, or they're playing against the third or fourth line of some opposition. That's an advantage to the Jets. So you better run that advantage and take advantage of that advantage by giving them more ice time.
Yeah, and Drew, I have no problem. I have time to listen to, Connor and Perfetti being on the top line, and then Ehlers goes up with Scheifele and Velarde. Like, I have time for that.
I don't think it has to be Connor. I mean, Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde played really well together in those 2 games before Velarde got injured. But I don't think it has to be that, because guess what? Scheifele, Velarde, and Ehlers also played damn well together when they were together. When
Scheifele, Velarde,
Connor was
Ehlers,
out.
in terms of expected goals at 5-on-5, is the best line that the Jets have put out there. I mean,
Right.
the numbers, will back that up, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when the numbers tell you that, it then becomes, why is Rick Bowness deciding to put Scheifele and Connor? We all know that Scheifele and Connor have played a lot together over the years. I mean, I think most Jets fans don't need to be told that, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, the reality is usually coaches like to stick with the winning formula, right? And as you mentioned, if Scheifele comes back on Saturday, it'll be the first time that the Jets have relatively all of their forwards. I guess David Gustafsson.
Well, but David Gustafsson, I mean, was a scratch to start the season. So I mean, you're
I'm just saying. I mean, he is still injured.
Yes,
but I mean, we're talking about more so the let's say the top 9, if you will, because the fourth line has basically changed all year long, right?
Right.
And so I don't even. You know what? I got to say this again. I like the Gus Bus. But how do you take Dominic Toninato out of this lineup right now?
I don't think you can. I mean, look, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby didn't do anything in my mind to play his way out of the lineup either. It was just a numbers game. I mean, he was a healthy scratch for the Jets tonight. He might be a little bit under the weather, I suppose.
They could have taken Rasmus Kupari out based on how he played against Philly, but you're right, Drew. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's between Dominic Toninato and Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, I mean, obviously Toninato wins faceoffs, and he centered the third line. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby can't do that.
Right.
And you're right. It could have just been, between Toninato, Jonsson-Fjällby, and Kupari. But the reality is, I think there's even an argument to be made that you keep Jonsson-Fjällby on the fourth line over David Gustafsson. I mean, there's a lot of interchangeable parts on the fourth line. And obviously, I realize a lot of Jets fans, were clamoring for maybe Mason Appleton to get bumped down to the fourth line. And obviously scoring 1 goal isn't going to change that.
Right.
But I think if you're looking at, what the Jets might do, in the 6 weeks or 7 weeks leading up to the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if, you see a center acquired and then or a winger acquired, I should say, and that bumps Appleton down.
Look, right now, assuming Scheifele is back on Saturday, all of a sudden your fourth line has very likely might have a guy like Morgan Barron on it and Alex Iafallo. So, I mean, if those guys are on your fourth line, whomever the center is, and if the center is Kupari, if the center is Toninato, and that obviously will play itself out. But that as a fourth line for the Jets, is a pretty impressive fourth line, and that every other team in the NHL is not going to enjoy going up against Barron and Iafallo in particular on the fourth line.
And I just wanted to say one more thing, Drew, before we get into the Betway game recap.
Yeah.
If Scheifele is good to go on Saturday, which we think there's a good chance he'll play against Ottawa.
Right.
I mean, it is going to be between Dominic Toninato, I believe, and Rasmus Kupari.
Yeah.
Morgan Barron's not coming out of the lineup.
No.
I mean, he's just not.
I wouldn't see any reason to take.
So it's Rasmus Kupari or it's Dominic Toninato. And to be honest with you, and again, a few minutes ago I was praising Toninato, right? I think he has done an admirable job on the fourth line and the third line.
Right.
But it could be Toninato because Rasmus Kupari played so well. Do you really want to put him in for 2 games? Then he has a really good game and then you take him out. So regardless, when Scheifele comes back, a really good player is going to come out of the lineup, which again, these are great problems for Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel to have, right? But it's pretty crazy when for the last 3 or 4 years, all we've talked about was how the fourth line has been this mishmash, with all due respect to guys like, Trevor Lewis, Nate Thompson, Saku Manalainen. I mean, give Chevy credit. He has constructed a very, very deep forward group, and it starts with the guys he acquired in the Dubois trade.
No question about it. You're absolutely right. And of course, we will have more on that on Saturday morning's Illegal Curve Hockey Show. That'll be 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. And then the matinee contest between the Jets and the Senators, not in Ottawa proper, but in Canada, Ontario, just outside of Ottawa. So it's a busy Saturday.
Used to try to get a good piece of rye bread, right, Drew?
We can't get a good rye bread in Ottawa. It was my chief complaint from when I lived there, is that you couldn't get a good city rye bread.
Somebody wasn't
rye
sending
bread.
you that city rye bread. You could send that express.
Yeah, my parents could have, but they decided to save it for their other son. Oh wait,
they decided to
I'm
change the locks
child.
on the doors at home.
That's right. They got rid of my room. They immediately, so I couldn't come back. That's a separate issue altogether. But anyways, the IC Hockey Show Saturday morning 9 a.m. and then post game after the Jets and the Senators Saturday afternoon.
You know, we have last in the Eastern Conference right now.
Well, they got embarrassed tonight as well in Colorado. 7-4. They lost. Sorry, it was in Ottawa. They gave up, I believe, 5 unanswered goals to lose 7-4. Things are not good in Ottawa. Not good by a long.
The answer to that question is Ottawa, by the way.
Yes. Thank you. Let's get into tonight's Betway game recap, talking about the Jets' 4-2 victory over the New York Islanders.
The Betway game recap.
Big thanks to our friends at Betway, the most trusted voice in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. As you all know, Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront. With a large selection of betting options in sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds, what are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. You know what you have to do? You have to please play responsibly. Big thanks to our friends at Betway.
Drew, I want to know who put money on Kyle Connor scoring a goal in his first game back, because I think, that might have paid a nice little sum of money.
Okay, thank you for that betting insight. Stay tuned for more betting insight from Mr. Ginsburg.
You can bet on one guy scoring, right?
Yes, you can. Of course, you can. It's you're for Kyle Connor in his first game back, he probably would have paid, I'm gonna guess, plus 130 maybe. Okay. Which means if you had bet $1, you would have won $1.30. But I'm just spitballing on that one. I don't know exactly.
When I place bets with Betway, that's I just bet in increments of $1. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's okay. They'll take your money nonetheless. They're willing to let you play in the game for that amount. The Jets opened the scoring at the 9:41 mark of the first period. Gabe Vilardi getting his 11th of the year, assist to Adam Lowry and Josh Morrissey. It's a clean zone entry by the Jets. I mean, it's amazing how many goals in the NHL start with a clean zone entry, but this is another one of them.
I could listen to you say clean zone entry every day of the week, Drew.
Well, thank you.
And I know that the chat loves it too.
Okay, well, I believe it was Kyle Connor who drops it to Josh Morrissey. Connor's on the half wall. He feeds it back to Morrissey, and then there's a 2-layer screen in front of Ilya Sorokin, and those layers are Lowry and Vilardi, which means those are 2 very big layers. Yep. And it is Vilardi causing the traffic in front, and the puck is in off of him, giving the Jets the 1-0 lead just before the 10-minute mark of the first period.
Yeah, and what stands out, we were just talking about Connor's empty net goal, but Connor doesn't get an assist because it's a double tip, right?
Right.
But he does a nice cutback, and I believe it was Scott Mayfield, if I'm not mistaken, who is chasing him, and then Bo Horvat kind of comes over to help, but then Connor dishes the puck obviously to Morrissey. Mm-hmm. And then obviously, it results on a shot on net, and Lowry gets a piece of it, and then Vilardi, I think it goes off of his leg. But at first, what I thought happened was Vilardi tipped it, Sorokin made the save, and then he had to poke it again to actually put it in the net. But on the replay, you could see Lowry got a piece of it, and then it either went off of Vilardi's stick or glove or something. But like you said, that's a couple of big men there. Lowry's 6'5", what's Vilardi, 6'2", 6'3". Yeah. Those are big boys, and honestly, that's what you want to see more of from the Jets. And we often talk about with the Winnipeg Jets, we talk about how balanced the scoring is, and how many good scoring lines they have and everything like that. But I think they've gotten away from that a little bit, because going into this game, they had scored 2 goals or less in 3 of the previous 6 games, right? We talked about, obviously, the shutout against Philly. They only scored 2 against Chicago. They only scored 2 against Anaheim, right? Obviously, they exploded for 5 goals against Columbus, and 6 against Arizona?
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is just like, a nice cutback by Kyle Connor. I don't know what else to say, Drew. And then, Morrissey, we know how good he is at wristing those shots on net. And then, like you said, it's all about layers there. And what I made a note of is Sorokin is actually, he's going from left to right. And what I thought was interesting was Velarde was kind of backing up. So he's going the opposite way. And I think that's why Sorokin only got a piece of it. And I'm not a goalie expert, but, I'll pretend to be.
There you go. That's all we ask you to do is to pretend on this show. So 1-0 for the Jets at that point in time. And that's exactly what for a team that had been shut out on Saturday night, and to your point, hasn't necessarily had goals come by overwhelmingly easy in the last few games. It's important for the Jets to get on the board, within that first 10 minutes of the contest, so as to not feel as though they're getting snake bitten or that they begin to squeeze the sticks a little bit too tight or anything along those lines. To the New York Islanders' credit, they do tie the game. It's 6 minutes and 12 seconds later. It's not a power play goal because 2 seconds earlier, the tripping penalty to Dylan DeMello does expire, but it is DeMello's not really back into the play just yet. It's a beautiful tip by Anders Lee, who redirects the point shot from Mike Riley. Sebastian Aho, the other Sebastian Aho, getting a secondary assist on this one. Beautiful tip by Anders Lee. He's a really smart, really nice hockey player, and we know how well he succeeds against the Winnipeg Jets. Our buddy Dan Robertson on the broadcast, what did he say? Something like 16 goals against the Jets in 19 career games. I might be a little bit off on the number, but whatever it is, it's an impressive total for Anders Lee, and he ties it up at 1 at this point.
And another noted Jets killer in this game, J.G. Pajot. He scored a lot of goals against the Jets going back to his Ottawa Senators days. Speaking of the Sens, right, Drew?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't count as a power play goal, but for all intents and purposes, it is because DeMello's not in the play, and the goal is scored literally as he's stepping back onto the ice, right? Like he didn't even have time to get close to back into the play, right? So yeah, look, the Islanders, we talked about it. Their power play is actually very good for a team that's hasn't been very good lately.
Right.
So yeah, just a nice point shot by Mike Riley, and then Anders Lee has been doing this for many, many years. We talked about it. He's a former 40 goal guy, right? So
captain of the Islanders.
And I thought a lot of times we talk about, does the eye test match the analytics? And for me, like this should have been a tie game after 1, right? Like,
yeah,
it seemed like, the Jets and Islanders were trading chances, and, they capitalized on their power play, even though it's not a power play. So I guess that what I said doesn't make sense. But yes, Anders Lee came to play. And I thought there was desperation on that power play. And like I said, off the top of the show, I just didn't see that desperation in the second period. And that's a credit to the way the Jets played, obviously led by the top line of Lowry, Velarde, and Connor. And they got some luck. Let's be honest. We're going to get into that goal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how many times are we going to say luck as we talk about the Neil Pionk goal, Drew?
Well, it certainly was a lucky goal. I mean, the Islanders begin to run themselves into penalty trouble. They take 3 minor penalties in that second period, and then the Jets are able to capitalize. Neil Pionk, it's a power play goal coming at the 15-19 mark of period number 2. Neil Pionk getting his 4th of the season, assist to Cole Perfetti and Nate Schmidt. And Perfetti really deserves 2 assists on this one, not just 1. It's his initial shot that just blows the skate blade right out of Ilya Sorokin's skate.
And it wasn't that hard of a shot either. That's what was weird about it to me.
You hit it on the right spot and the blade just goes flying, I guess. I mean, if it's just a release on the boot of the blade,
right.
If you hit that release and the blade's going to go flying, and that's what happens here. And obviously Sorokin is just struggling now to get back into the play because he can't move side to side. He's got he's a one-legged goaltender in this instance, more or less. I believe it's the Mesnikov who recovers the puck from behind the net as it's the Jets' second power play unit. The Jets move it around very well, and then they tee up Neil Pionk, who's got a wide open net to shoot for, because Sorokin is basically stuck at the right side of the crease. He can't physically go cross crease because the blade is not in his skate, and Neil Pionk makes no mistake and offers no apologies for giving the Jets a 2-1 lead, as he.
Yeah, and I made, we're both taking notes now. We're seeing whose notes are better. I don't know if I can compete with your notes. Yeah, well yours, yeah, well I've got mine here, Drew. But I go on the note app. Well, you go old school and you've got a
I'm
nice
old
pen.
school.
Do you write in cursive?
It's sort of a hybrid, I would say, between cursive and printing.
Okay.
So a very unique Mendelian style. They're not teaching it in schools just yet
Right.
because it's so revolutionary. But soon, I'm sure that they will. At least generations from now, when they unearth my all of my artifacts, then they will begin to teach the wisdom of the Mendel to younger generations and future members of our society.
And there's not going to be any chicken wings included in that when they unlock that time capsule, right?
Neither boned nor boneless, as we've
Yeah.
discovered.
Yeah, I tried to get you on the boneless bandwagon, Drew, but no, I mean
Ain't gonna work.
you nailed it there, right? And the thing is, I made a note, and what I was referencing here was that we talked about the Jets' first power play, and there was the missed call on Scott Mayfield,
Right.
high sticking Nemesnikov, but then on this power play,
High sticking, like clotheslining him with the stick,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
It was a kind of again, a bit of a weird game. And then prior to this penalty, Mayfield trips Nemesnikov, right?
Yeah.
And it leads to a Jets goal. So it was almost like, karma at play, if you believe in that type of stuff, which I do. Obviously, hockey, there's usually some karma and there's some makeup calls and everything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just really unfortunate for Ilya Sorokin here. The Jets have a lot of good pressure, and you're absolutely right, Drew. Like Cole Perfetti, I realize that he's on the second power play unit, but I have time for Perfetti on the top unit. The way he is able to slow things down, and the way, like, I love him, on the point, but he's also a guy that if you need him to, he can switch, and then he can kind of be net beside the net in that kind of position, not necessarily net front. But he's a guy that can kind of be, beside the net, kind of working things from behind, right? So I love what Perfetti did here, but I thought it was, very funny that Neil Pionk, when he was interviewed by Kevin Sawyer during the second intermission, he said that the guys were giving it to him on the bench because they noticed that. I mean, they could see that Sorokin was struggling, right? I don't necessarily know if every player knew that it was the skate blade, but they knew that he wasn't, he wasn't feeling it. So good on Pionk for, just burying that puck in the net. Because I think when people were watching this live, people were wondering. I mean, I obviously didn't know. I don't know if you did, Drew, but most people I don't think realized that Sorokin's skate blade was off.
Well, when Sorokin was sort of still, down on the ice and it wasn't able to move, I was wondering if there was going to be an interference, if it was something to do with that, if there was a player, hindering his ability, hindering his mobility. But then you saw, and a great camera work, and kudos to the crew at TSN for showing it and identifying it so quickly. You saw the blade go flying, and you're like, okay, well, it's a blade issue, and that's if you want these quick trigger release blades, this is what sometimes happens. I mean, and that's just I guess a fluke, but a risk that you run by using those. And Pionk, when he was talking to Kevin Sawyer during the intermission, as to your point, Ezzy, he said that he knew that Sorokin was without the blade, and he saw it go flying off the initial Perfetti shot. So the Jets were aware that they had both a man advantage and an equipment advantage in this instance. So
and it's unfortunate for Sorokin. We talked about it. He's not having the same type of year he was having last year. He's not going to be a Vezina candidate this year. Yeah. And he was pulled last night. We talked about it. He was pulled after the second period, and then former Moose goalie Ken Appleby came in for the third period because we talked about it. Varlamov's injured right now. Right. So it's just a lot of things are going wrong for the Islanders this year. And quite frankly, they're just not, they're a top heavy team. We talked about it. They just don't have, the forward depth. Once you go down, to the third and fourth lines, especially compared to a team like the Jets, they just don't have a lot of depth. And, when you have an injury to a guy like Ryan Pollock of, I think he's from Grandview, Manitoba. I should know that. He logs big minutes. Like Pollock is a guy that plays 22, 23, 24 minutes. So again, I think, guys like Mike Riley, Sebastian Aho, I mean, these guys have, filled in admirably, but they're just, they're a bit of a disorganized team. I thought they gave up a lot in the neutral zone to the Jets. What did the Jets have? 45 shots, 44 shots. I mean, the Islanders definitely were putting the puck on Hellebuck as well. But I mean, they're just not that stingy Islanders team that we've been used to over the years.
No, they're long in the tooth. This is not a young team by any stretch of the imagination either. I mean, Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, these are guys who's, even JG Pajot, these are guys whose best days are behind them, and they're still, trying to trudge along there with the Islanders.
I just remembered the other guy that's out right now, Casey Cizikas.
That's
right.
And
that's not an insignificant piece either. He's a guy that plays on the fourth line. So without Cizikas and Pollock, I mean, those are just two veteran players that the Islanders are without right now. So they're in tough right now to make the playoffs. It's going to be, it's going to go, I think it's going to go right down to the wire. Like I obviously hope that my Devils get into the playoffs this year, but the East is very close, kind of around that middle part.
Well, from Detroit and Tampa Bay hold down the wild card spots in the Eastern Conference, and then right behind them, there's three teams: the Penguins, the Caps, the Islanders at 48 points, then the Devils at 47 points. So, yes, a significant logjam right in that wild card battle in the Eastern Conference, and the Jets, of course, in the midst of a huge stretch against Eastern Conference teams. A bizarre portion of the schedule that eight straight games the Jets have against.
Okay, let me put you on the spot right now, Drew. Now that the Jets have played the Islanders.
Yeah,
I was having a little fun at lunch because Nate Schmidt referenced this in his media availability. I don't know if that was today or yesterday when he called Sandberg a carny. Which
that was yesterday when they were talking about the golf and Schmidt was talking
about
Mike
McIntyre asked Nate Schmidt. For those, you can go to legalcurve.com and listen to the audio from yesterday, Monday. But Nate Schmidt said that it was kind of weird that the Jets haven't played a bunch of teams. So my question for you and everybody in the chat: you cannot go check the Jets schedule online. Which four teams have the Jets not played yet?
Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Four teams. Vancouver.
Correct.
Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Seattle.
Correct. You're missing one.
Well, thank you. I know I'm missing one. Have the Jets played Ottawa at home? Did they play Ottawa at home?
Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's either yes or a no. I mean, I know they play Ottawa on Saturday. Okay, so
it's not Ottawa. No. I don't think it's Ottawa. I think.
Well, I mean, you're the one asking the damn trivia questions. Washington, I would say. I don't think they played Washington, have they?
Maybe it's 5 teams. Maybe it's 5 teams. It's the Leafs. The Leafs is the other team.
Oh, right, the Leafs, of course. Okay.
Maybe it's 5 teams. Maybe have they played Washington yet? I don't think they have.
I know they go to Washington. I don't know if they've played Washington at home. I don't remember them.
I'm not a very good trivia master, am I?
No, you really aren't. You need to know the answer to the trivia questions if you're going to ask them. We've talked about this before. You never know the answers.
We've talked about using your brain before.
2-1 for the Jets at this point. They make it 3-1 a couple minutes later.
Washington is right, Drew. They have not played Washington.
So your trivia question was wrong to begin with.
That is kind of weird that we're in game 43 and they still haven't played 5 teams.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Ezra for his insistence on asking trivia questions that he doesn't know the answer to. So yes, that is not a legal curve endorsed. That is a Ginsburg guarantee in that instance, and we take no responsibility for any damage caused by Mr. Ginsburg. Jets make it 3-1, 2 minutes and 39 seconds later. It's Mason Appleton, and this feels good for him. It's his first goal in 26 games, which is just way too long for an NHL regular to go without a goal. That means it's his first goal since November 19th. It's not a pretty one, but boy, it'll look pretty for Mason Appleton. But it's a hard-working goal, and it's not a very good goal if you're Adam Pelech. He is the one who is largely responsible for this goal in that, Sebastian Aho gives him a pass in their own zone, and Pelech just sort of tries to turn and fire it up the boards. It's kept in at the point by Dylan DeMello. He shoots it towards the goal. Dominic Toninato gets a stick on it, and then Mason Appleton beats Adam Pelech to the loose puck and banks it in off of Ilya Sorokin. And it's not, like I said, it's not the prettiest goal, but it's going to show up very pretty on the score sheet for Mason Appleton, and it's a 3-1 Jets lead, and it actually is both the game-winning goal in tonight's game. It's also our Seagram shot of the game.
The Seagram shot of the game.
Big thanks to our friends at Seagram's for their continued support of the Illegal Curve post-game show. Whatever you are in the mood to drink, be it Seagram's 83, Seagram's VO, or, of course, our personal favorite, Fireball, we strongly recommend you check out the great Seagram's line of products. And, of course, we remind you, and our friends at Seagram's remind you, to please drink responsibly. Appleton makes it 3-1, Ezzy.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee's coming in there late with Toronto. Yes, Lee's, we've already covered. The Jets have not played the Toronto Maple Leafs. I also don't know which teams the Jets haven't played. And I'm asking the question to Drew as if I have the answer. Yeah, I mean, this is not a pretty goal, as you mentioned. And the most important thing is obviously Mason Appleton breaks a rather long goalless streak. Yep. But yeah, Adam Pelech coughs up the puck, and Mason Appleton just beats him. He gets body positioning on Pelech, who's obviously a big boy. And as you said, it's just a quintessential hardworking goal. And you kind of almost want the goal that you score to break a 26-game goalless drought to be like that.
Well, it's usually going to be it's going to be an ugly goal.
Exactly.
Usually.
And I thought Appleton was good tonight defensively. And obviously he's a guy that the Jets rely on the penalty kill. And, there's been some turnover. We talked about, Toninato, looked fine centering that line with Niederreiter and Appleton. So you love to see that, right? And you could, I mean, we saw it with Cam Atkinson, right? When he did the monkey off the back. And that was a huge monkey off of Mason Appleton's back. So it's an ugly goal, but it's a huge goal because of, where it comes in the game. It's late in the second period. The Islanders are playing the second game of a back-to-back. The Jets badly outplayed them. I think you would agree, Drew, in the second period.
Yes, and I would agree.
Even though the Islanders came back early in the third and made it a 3-2 game, I mean, that goal was the goal that, made it difficult. When you're to come back, like when you're playing a Jets team, what is it? Is it 12 games now? The Jets have allowed 2 goals or less? Or
it's
13?
Either 12 or 13. I've lost track.
Which is crazy. I think it's 33 now.
It's 33
or less, right?
Yeah. And did you notice, by the way, Dan Robertson joined us on Saturday's Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And it was a great interview with Dan. And if you missed any of that interview, if you missed any of Saturday's show, it's available on our YouTube channel and on the website. But when we were talking to Dan and we were talking about the 32, it was then 32 games straight without the 3 or less. We mentioned that Minnesota, of course, has the record, but we talked about how, and it was a stat that I stole from Eric DeHatchik of The Athletic, talking about how in that 14-15 season when Minnesota set that record, Jamie Benn had the most points in the league with only 87. And you see Dan incorporated that stat during the broadcast today.
I did notice that.
As he said he was going to. So
I noticed there wasn't a Drew Mandel drop, though.
No, that's okay. I don't need the credit because I didn't come up with it. That's an Eric DeHatchik one, so I don't expect any sort of shout out from Dan there. But for anybody,
87 points like that, it's been a long time since we've seen the leading point producer in the NHL with that low of a total. Like, what did McDavid have last year? 153.
Something like that.
It's not going to happen this year, but I mean, Kucherov could easily hit like 130 or something like that.
Oh yeah, it was whatever the number. It's certainly not going to be 87. That much I can assure you about that. So the Jets lead 3-1 after 40 minutes. A very good second period for the Jets, and not so good period for the New York Islanders. But I'll give them credit. Desperate teams, need to play some desperate hockey, and they got off to the right start in that third period. They were desperate, and you saw it 35 seconds into the period. It's Anders Lee, his second of the game. Bo Horvat getting the assist on this one. It's an ugly one again. Sorokin gave up a bank shot from a bad angle. So did Hellebuck. He gave up a bank shot from a bad angle. And you heard the vociferous celebration from Anders Lee. Pick the mics on the ice. Pick that one up. No questions. No question about it. He was very exuberant about scoring that goal and trying to drag his team back into the game. And it was 3-2 at this point, Ezzy.
I'm pretty sure people in the bathroom at Canada Life Center heard Anders Lee say, "Yeah!" I mean, I that was incredible. I mean, and obviously, during the second intermission, I'm sure that's all they were talking about was getting an early goal to make it a 1-goal game, right? And then what was it, a minute and 2 seconds, something like that? into the third period?
35 seconds in.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
No.
What I love is that Anders Lee has an aggressive forecheck on Adam Lowry.
Yes.
Then
Lowry drops his stick and then is sort of now trying to pick it up
net.
at the same time, played the defense. And so it's a little bit of awkwardness for the Jets in that they're hemmed in their own zone.
Yeah. And then Bo Horvat makes a play on Brendan Dillon and pokes the puck to Anders Lee. And then it's a one-on-one situation. So Pionk is protecting the fort in front of the net.
Right.
Hellebuck's got the post covered, but Lee, being the big, skilled goal scorer that he is, just decides, hey, I'm just going to shoot the puck instead of, I don't know if you thought this too, Drew, if anybody in the chat thought this, but I thought he was going to take the puck to the net, but he decides I'm just going to shoot the puck off the pad. And that's why I mentioned Pionk is outstretched. And I wasn't sure, if he got a little piece of it, but regardless, it bounces off of Hellebuck's pad, off the post, whatever. Somehow there was space between Hellebuck and the post, and Lee gets that puck in. And you're absolutely right. 35 seconds in, now it's a hockey game, as opposed to the Jets just holding on to a 2-goal lead and maybe adding to it. So, yeah, good on the Islanders. I mean, we talked about it. The Islanders are not a very talented team when you compare them to, the top teams like the Jets or the Avalanche or the Bruins. But they're a pesky team. They're a veteran team, right? Like Noah Dobson. I mean,
Noah Dobson's a nice.
He's gonna be a top 7, top 8 defenseman for Canada, I think, at the Olympics.
Well, he was drafted. When was he drafted? Was it 2018? 18? I was going to say 19. So
that was the year the Jets didn't have a first round pick because they traded it for Paul Stastny.
Right. So it's taken him a few years, to really blossom. But that defensemen oftentimes take a little longer to blossom. But he's a good defenseman, and he's a workhorse on the back end for the New York Islanders. And you're right, Ezzy, when whatever that not quite World Cup of hockey, gets underway, his name is going to be bandied about along with Josh Morrissey's and of course all the other defensemen.
Yeah, Morrissey, I think is in there as well. I mean, I think the Golden Knights might have 1 or 2 defensemen. I think Shea Theodore's in the conversation. Alex Petrangelo's obviously in the conversation. Some guy named Cale Makar, I think, is pretty good. He might be there. I mean, Cale Makar is obviously going to be Canada's best defenseman because he's the best defenseman on the planet. Right. But I wanted to make note of this, Drew. I don't think we touched on this in the first period. You remember? I think I'd have to go back and look here. I was trying to find it. It might have been, where was it here? Noah Dobson had a really good scoring chance. Remember, Hellebuck made the blocker save.
The shaft of the shaft of the.
I want to say Kyle Palmieri maybe passed it to him. Maybe it was Horvat. I forget.
It was about 5 minutes into the second period.
Sorry, second period. Yeah,
second period. Yeah, 5 minutes into the second period.
And then Hellebuck made that blocker save, which was incredible. Dan Robertson couldn't believe it.
That was Hellebuck's probably best save of the game, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make note of that. We were talking about Dobson. So, again, Hellebuck, even though he lets in that goal from Anders Lee, he was excellent, right? With whatever it was, 34, 35 saves.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. There were a lot of shots. So it was 35 saves, 35 saves out of the 37 that the Islanders shot, the 37 shots that the Islanders unleashed.
I mean, it's just another day in the life of Connor Hellebuck. He just, that's what he does. He either gets a shutout or he lets in maybe 1 or 2.
That's right. So 3-2 now, and it's still 19 and a half minutes to go in the third period. And the Islanders were coming on. They were pushing the play. They really were trying to equalize, as you would expect. And they had some good opportunities, but the Jets were so well adept at removing any rebounds from troubled areas. I mean, there was a couple where Dylan DeMello made a really nice play and scooped one away. And who was that off of? The loose puck?
Scott Mayfield with the point shot, and then it was Hudson Fasching.
Fasching. And
the rebound was there. Hellebuck gave up a rebound, but you're right, Drew. See, now we're trying to go to our notes. I mean, that's why we have when it's just the two of us. It's a battle of the wits here, right?
We
usually lose.
Don't sell yourself short. It's funny. Hellebuck, the numbers look good, and he made some key saves. But I did think even earlier in the game that he was maybe fighting the puck just a little bit tonight. Not a lot. It obviously didn't tremendously impact the game as the Jets win 4-2. But he just didn't seem as perfectly comfortable or have the same sort of level of comfort in net as we've seen him when he's at his absolute tippy top of his game.
There was one play where he was a little bit uncertain. He came out of the net.
Yeah.
And then I think he wasn't sure He wasn't sure which defenseman he was going to go to. I remember that one play, but yeah, I would agree with that. And I think part of it has to do with the nature of this game, right? Like we saw combined 81 shots. Like you don't see that very often where both teams have 35 plus shots, right? So, I mean, maybe it was part of that because the Islanders were putting everything on the net. And so were the Jets. I mean, the Jets had 44, 45 shots too, right? But maybe it's
44.
part of that, or maybe it was just one of those games. But at the end of the day, right? Like Hellebuck almost, had only allowed one goal if you take away the Anders Lee kind of fluky goal, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he was good, but yeah, I would agree with that. It wasn't the sharpest game, kind of in general,
I'd
right?
agree.
Like it wasn't. I don't know if it's how many penalties did the Jets take? 3?
Two.
They only took 2.
DeMello in the first period for tripping and Nemesnikov in the second for holding.
But then the Islanders took 5, so that takes away, like when you have 7 combined penalties, there's less obviously time at even strength. So maybe that's part of it. I'm not sure. But and the Jets have played a lot of hockey, even though they had 2 days off between the game against Philly and this game. So I think all the players are going to love having 3 days between the next game. And I wouldn't be surprised, Drew, would you, if they go Laurent Brossoit on Saturday?
It would not surprise. The only reason why I could see them still going with Hellebuck is because we know how much he likes afternoon games. But you're certainly right that Laurent Brossoit would not surprise me if they went with him on Saturday. It seems
because
like
then you run Hellebuck for the next 3. You play him against Boston, and then you play him against Toronto.
But the schedule is soft, so it's not a matter. The rest is not going to be an issue right now from here until next Saturday, a week from this. So 12 days from now when they play Toronto at home, and that's the last game. I mean, they have 4 games. After tonight, they have 4 games from now until a week Saturday. So the schedule loosens up for the Winnipeg Jets right now, and it's a well-earned.
It loosens up for us, True.
I know.
True, more importantly,
I don't know. I already.
We
told
actually
Laura,
get to spend time with our wives.
I know. I told Laura they only play 5 games in the next 25 days.
And children.
Well, yeah, children too. But I was like, we can watch shows together. We can cuddle up and watch reruns of Mad About You, things of that nature. All of the sort of fun stuff that we don't get to do very often during the.
Is Mad About You available on a streaming service?
I have no idea. It's a Seinfeld reference where Jerry's watching the baseball game and George and Susan are curled up in bed watching Mad About You, and he looks like he'd rather be absolutely anywhere else in the world than next to his at one time
Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt.
That's true. Very good. They are the cast and crew, the main.
It's a good show.
Crew. Do you remember? Here's a trivia question
for
you.
Mad About You was just a nice, wholesome show. It was a nice, wholesome television program.
There was a dog walker who would walk Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt's dog on Mad About You. He's a famous character actor, voice actor.
Brad Garrett?
No, Brad Garrett was not a voice actor. I mean, he was a voice actor, but he was also on Everybody Loves Raymond. Do you remember?
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yes. So the dog walker on Mad About You.
You got to give me a hint here. What else was that person like? What else was? What other shows or movies?
Simpsons. The voice and the main one of the main voices in the Simpsons.
Hank Groening?
No, Matt Groening is the inventor of the Simpsons.
Nancy
Our buddy
Cartwright?
Leon Pinkovich has it in the chat. Hank Azaria was the dog walker on Mad About You. So there you go. How about that for some completely random trivia? And at least I knew the answer to that random trivia here on the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Shout out to Leon Pinkovich. Good job.
Yes, good job, Leon. Thank you for that. The Jets end up getting the empty net goal, and it's based on good defensive play by Kyle Connor. I mean, he blocks a couple shots. He gets his active stick in the way. I thought that the real difference, once Noah Dobson took that tripping penalty with 4:20 to play, I thought that sort of sucked the last of the life out of the New York Islanders. The Islanders played a pretty good third period. To that point, they were only down a goal, but then when Dobson takes that tripping penalty with 4:22 to go, I thought that was sort of their final, the final death knell for the Islanders tonight.
Well, and we talked about how good Noah Dobson was, right? He had not just 1, but 2 good scoring chances in the first couple periods, right? And then, not only does he not get a goal, but then he takes the penalty. And as you mentioned, Drew, the reason why obviously you never want to take a penalty late in the game. But when you're down 1 goal and there's 4 minutes left, NHL teams nowadays like to pull their goalie with around 3 minutes left. I mean, it's not always exactly 3 minutes, but it used to be that teams would wait till a minute 30 left. Now teams like to pull their goalie earlier, kind of between 2 minutes and 3 minutes, I would say. I mean, I'm not sure if that stat is kept. It probably is somewhere. Maybe we'll have to ask our buddy Garrett Hole about that. But I think that, Kyle Connor getting, the goal is just, it's kind of poetic, right? And you're right. I think it was, made a note of it here, or maybe I didn't make a note of it here. I think it was
you
Kyle Palmieri.
You made a note that said "eat more chocolate." That's the note you made.
Oh,
instead.
Right. Eat less chocolate, Drew.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Hey, I went to the gym yesterday. Actually, I went to the Sport Manitoba gym.
Good
it was
for
the
you.
first time I'd been to the gym in a while.
Just for the record, first time you've been there in a while. Is it? Do you not get a free membership to that gym?
I do. As part of my job at Manitoba, I'm very lucky because it's a really nice gym there. If you haven't been to the Sport Manitoba gym, there's high performance athletes that work out there all the time, as opposed to me, who's a low performance athlete. I went to the gym.
Not just throw around the word athlete.
Better, right? I'm now only eating half of an extra large pizza.
Oh,
I'm not eating the whole extra large pizza. So things like that, drinking more water, not wrapping all of my food in butter, like things like that, right?
Yeah, your fried butter diet is off the table, so that's good. Good for you. I shouldn't make fun. Good for you going to the gym. Keep that work up there, Mr. Ginsburg.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I mean, New Year's resolutions always fall apart. The second week of January. So I'm trying to stick with it. We'll see what happens.
There you go. Keep up the good work. The Jets kept up their good work. Kyle Connor into the empty net. That made it 4-2. The Jets back atop the NHL standings with tonight's victory. They wrap up the homestand. 3 wins, that 1 loss. 33 straight games now, having given up 3 or less goals. Next in action Saturday afternoon against the Ottawa Senators, which we will get you all set up for Saturday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We go to break on this edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. If you haven't already done so, we remind you to smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, all of that good stuff. We want you to do that because, of course, that's what we ask of you to do. So we keep supporting us here at the Illegal Curve. Actually, one thing I want to do before we go to break, I want to remind everybody this is coming up in about 8 days' time. Let me just see if I can find it here on the there it is. I'm going to put this up there right now. We are live on location. Our next live on location show, Wednesday, January 24th. That is going to be a 6 p.m. start, Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. Join us. We are going to be watching the Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know that will be a heated game. We're going to be watching the Jets Leafs. Then we're going to be doing a live edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. That's coming up Wednesday, January 24th, 6 p.m. Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. Be sure to join yours truly, Mr. Ginsburg and Mr. Minuk, for a live edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show and a watch party. So you folks can join us then. So that's something to look forward to. When we come back on the other side of the break, we got some post-game quotes, Tough Duck hardest hitting comment, and whatever other nonsense Ezzy and I come up with. It's a Tuesday night. The Jets win 4-2 over the New York Islanders. Stay with us. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Your coworkers love you because you always make them laugh. You're the life of the party with stories that have them rolling on the floor. Or maybe you're just the quiet one in the corner with the one-liners that just slay. Do you have what it takes to become Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job? Try your luck. Hit the stage at Rumors Comedy Club, and you could be walking away with $1,000 cash. Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job. Presented by Rumors. For all the details, head to rumorscomedyclub.com.
You guys ever wish for a game changer in life?
Like finding out your favorite snack has 0 calories?
Or discovering the mute button on Ezzy?
Picture this, a secret weapon for parking, where you can book a spot a whole month in advance.
Tell me more, Drew.
Pre-book your parking at really low rates, or maybe even for free if you use the code Illegal Curve.
Free? What is this, sorcery?
The Grid Park app. It's a real secret weapon that has affordable game day parking, and to sweeten the deal even more,
I love sweets.
our listeners can use the code Illegal Curve to park for free.
Holy Zamboni.
Tell me about it. Just download Grid Park, GRYD Park, and use the code Illegal Curve, all one word, to park for free.
The game can change just like that. Accidents happen when you aren't protected. So now what? Getting to your injury quickly can make all the difference. Help prevent them from being game changers with Linden Market Dental Center. Bonding, crowns, bridges, and dental implants. State-of-the-art treatments are available to help you get back in the game. To learn more, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
This January at Boston Pizza, every day is Pasta Tuesday. That means BP's famous pastas start at just $11.99 every single day. Create your own or go gourmet for just a few bucks more. Come on in for Pasta Tuesday pricing any day. Only this January at Boston Pizza.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. Top of the hour, Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg, Tuesday night. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show. Jets victorious 4-2. If you're just joining us tonight, it was backstopped, or it was wrapped up by a Kyle Connor empty net goal that wrapped up the scoring late in the third period. Here's what the Jets head coach Rick Bowness had to say about Kyle Connor's return to action. Give him credit, the Jets head coach said. Most guys take 2 to 3 games to get their timing and their legs and everything. He just stepped in there tonight like he hadn't missed 16 games. So that was very, very impressive. That quote courtesy of Connor Harabchuk, of course, good friend of the program. You've seen him do the post-game show with Dave M before. And of course, you can watch Connor's work with our friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk. So Kyle Connor stepped right in seamlessly, according to the Jets head coach Rick Bonus. Interesting to note, as the Jets are getting the next 2 days off completely. Rick Bonus giving the Jets Wednesday and Thursday off. I believe Wednesday was a scheduled off day. Thursday, I think, is an extra day. The Jets head coach says, quote, I think they need a mental and physical break, and we're going to take advantage of these 2 days. It's going to be a tough road trip, and we need to be a little sharper. So I actually agree. I think that's a smart decision by the Jets head coach. Give the players the 48 hours to sort of step away from the rink. You still get that practice in on Friday, so you can shake off whatever cobwebs you get from being off for a couple days, and then you can hit the ground running for those 4 games next week to really wrap up the bye week and pre-All-Star game portion of the schedule, hopefully for the Jets on a high note in doing so.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, some people are a little bit concerned with the lack of practice time, especially when you're talking about the power play. But at this point in the season, I think, even though there are some days between games, I think that's the right call. You reward the guys. And also, I know a lot of people are talking about this in the chat. I do think the flu bug and the illness, Drew, is factoring into that decision. I really
agree
do.
With you. Yeah, I mean, Gabe Velarde didn't take the skate this morning. He's under the weather. He played well, though. We know Axel Jonsson Fialbi has been under the weather for a couple days. So, get the players away, get them to relax, get them just some time off for the next couple days, maybe recharge those batteries, and then see where you can go from that, heading off to the 3-game road trip, including that huge back-to-back with the Jets and the Leafs Wednesday in Toronto. We'll be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, then back here Saturday to wrap up the schedule before the All-Star break and the bye week and all that good jazz. So,
Drew, I want to give a quick shout out to Nelson Gasper Drives.
Yeah.
I've seen him in the chat. He works at Birchwood Toyota. I know that because Naomi and I went to the Dawn restaurant. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a great.
I know it as I've been going there for so long, as I remember when it was called the Dawn Street Deli. So before it was the Dawn, it was called the Dawn Street Deli.
Well, I'm obviously messing with the wrong guy here, but not everybody knows it. But it is a little gem downtown on obviously Donald Street, Donald and Broadway,
just before Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I met Nelson there. I was wearing my IC shirt, and Nelson said that he enjoyed the show on Saturday. This was Saturday.
Okay.
So just wanted to give Nelson a shout out because we always appreciate people coming up and saying kind words about the show.
Yeah, way better than the people that throw tomatoes at us. Those people are really rude when they do that to us.
Or pretzels.
Yeah, pretzel. Well, pretzels we can eat. Tomatoes, once they hit you, they sort of just smash, and it's kind of awkward to pick up a pretzel off the ground.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not the biggest tomato guy.
Really? Like in general?
I like a sliced tomato on a hamburger.
Yeah.
I guess in a salad or something like that, but it's not my favorite legume.
Oh, it's not a legume. It's a fruit.
I don't even know if oh, sorry, that's right. It's a fruit.
Yeah.
But it's not even in my, I don't even it should be a vegetable though if you think about it. Well, but I know it has seeds and everything like that, but yeah, I just, it's not even in my top 5 fruits then, I guess.
Good to know. How about, do you have a Tough Duck hardest thing comment for us? Why don't we do that
Sorry
instead?
About that non sequitur.
The Tough Duck hardest thing comment.
The Jets need a couple days off from each other. I think you, me, and Dave need a couple days off from each other as well.
You didn't even do the post-game show on Saturday night, Drew.
Nonetheless, I still think we need a couple days off from each other.
Yeah, maybe a couple months.
Yeah.
Lots of good comments. We appreciate everybody joining us on tonight's post-game show. Drew and I have a little kind of private chat or private area where we star comments, and we've got 6 comments starred here. So I think there could be a lot of different winners, but we're going to give it to Stonewall Dave. And it's not just because I love the Interlake region and I love the town of Stonewall, but I just like this comment. It's simple. Jets got their work done tonight. Time off is coming for them very soon, and they've earned it. And, we talked about a bit of a flu bug, a little bit of a virus going through the team that's, hit a bunch of players. It's probably, it's possible the reality is pro hockey players, pro athletes in general, they'll play basically through anything. We've seen guys play with broken ribs, right? Yeah. So I just like that comment from Stonewall Dave. I think he's absolutely right. The Jets followed up their first loss in a long time with a solid victory over the Islanders. Yes, the Islanders made it close in the third period, but close but no cigar. So Stonewall Dave, send me an email, Ezra, EZRA @illegalcurve.com, or slide into my DMs on Twitter @ICSEG with your mailing info. I'm assuming Dave is in Stonewall. It's possible, I guess, that Dave is from Stonewall and lives somewhere else. But regardless, Dave, send me your address and I'll come over for a pizza. No, Tough Duck will ship out a toque to you.
There you go. Congratulations to Stonewall Dave, tonight's winner of the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment. Big show for everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight on the Illegal Curve post-game show. We'll be back Saturday morning for the Illegal Curve hockey show, 9 a.m. We are going to get you set for the Jets and the Ottawa Senators. And then later on Saturday afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, right around 4:45, 5 o'clock, the Illegal Curve post-game show. The best way to make sure you never miss a minute of anything Illegal Curve related is subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you get a nice little bloop, bloop, bloop boop on your phone every time we go live on this fine channel of ours. So be sure you're subscribing. If you haven't already done so, be sure to smash the like button, and you should tell your friends and tell your family. The best place to be after each and every Winnipeg Jets game and on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. This show wouldn't be possible without our great sponsors. That's our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, our friends at Grid Park. Use code Illegal Curve to park for free. Linden Market Dental Center. That should be Dental Center. I'm not sure what dental means, but I meant to say Dental Center. Zappia Group Realty. Betway, they're the title sponsor of the post-game show. Tough Duck, hardest hitting comment. That went to Stonewall Dave. Boston Pizza. We will be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue next Wednesday. Join us for the Jets and the Leafs. 6 o'clock puck drop, and then the Illegal Curve post-game show right after that, live on location at Boston Pizza. Our friends at Seagram's are the sponsor of the Shot of the Game. Rolly's Transfer has been on board for a very long time, and we appreciate them. And, of course, Farmery Beer, located at number 2 Donald Street. That's their retail location. Get Illegal Curve Light Lager at number 2 Donald Street or on whatever delivery app you so choose. Big thanks to our friends at Farmery Beer. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Winnipeg Jets victorious tonight, 4-2 over the New York Islanders. He is Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Until Saturday at 9 a.m., we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.